these grains themselves were from these areas. They used to be mega lake areas in the North Sahel. So as we come back into Mada Asaleh, the Nabatean kingdoms, hundreds of these across the desert. Now, who in their right mind would dig into these? Now, I've heard that they're portals and doorways. Not as we understand it, as you're looking for some sort of Stargate, but the same is very true of what looks like giant carved edifices into flat stone surfaces in sandstone and quartzite rock. Myanmar has one, but it cracked during an earthquake and it's no longer usable. South America also had heard many stories of this where there looks like they're just portals like that or entranceways just carved in and it just ends to an empty wall. Well, apparently the secret is you put your forehead against that wall and you start vibrating in certain frequencies, whether ah, va, sa, om, ma. And as you either go with a single frequency or combination of frequencies, that literally opens the doorway. That literally opens the doorway. Stories of monks popping out, popping in, disappearances, people appearing to literally walk through walls. You know, how many times through folklore have we heard that some people had been chased and they're doing the chasing of, and they come to these doorways and whoosh, they just vanish. Well, they didn't really vanish. Perhaps they all went there and started using the right frequency to unlock that, and they disappeared through that doorway. Because if you're looking for a global culture, these things are around our world, these types of doorways, cut into sandstone facades and faces. They are literally everywhere. So there is something to this. So when you see these doorways that look like, who in their right mind would just carve a doorway like that and not even make a room inside to go into? What kind of stupid people are those? Maybe you're thinking it the wrong way, and what you've been told it is completely fiction. Because again, you know, Ransom, I'll bring it back here. Like, how many things are we looking at that we are told the explanation is complete fiction? Like, the true use of it is so far off the radar for most people that, you know, the complete brainwashing of a society to not even think that that's possible is what we're looking at, staring us in the face in these ancient sites.
They definitely have a story to tell us. You know, it doesn't matter which one you pick. You kind of get into the scenario where there is two groups of people: the people with the power, the people without the power, the people with the knowledge, and the people without the knowledge. And you know, I keep saying we're in that same exact scenario right now, but there is one thing that's different about those times, or at least some of those times, is that the information that we've had in the last couple hundred years, and we were able to gather, that's in the written book form, and you know, all of these other aspects of trades and discoveries and things. We actually have the ability to absorb and save this information, unlike maybe other times. So I think we're a little head up as far as at least people that listen to shows like this, because at least they have their mind open to the fact that things can dramatically change within only a couple of years. I mean, if you were living in Germany in 1930, and then you looked back from 1945 back, you could realize, wow, a lot happened in 15 years. Or if you look back to maybe 2001 and in our time period, a lot's happened in 20 years. They've had a plan and they've been incrementalizing it up. And I think we're finally getting to see the finale. The question is how will, these little different groups of people respond? Hopefully, in the Western world, there's enough groups and shows and open-minded people, critical thinkers, that a lot of the information will be saved. And no matter what they do, we can always fall back on the earth, minus being in the middle of a war zone per se. But like, you in the Tennessee and me in New Mexico, I can find a place to grow food, to find water, to do, etc., as long as I can avoid the other group trying to control me. And that's what it's about. We're finally at the singularity of whether or not we as a people, human beings, are going to be controlled like ants, or like human beings. And kind of the ant model seems to be the model. And it's ironic because I've always had this kind of theory that what's going on Earth is some kind of terraforming event to take the population of Earth and create some kind of automaton-like creature that's not unlike what we picture as a gray. And think about it. So the diets are dramatically being changed. The way we live our life is dramatically being changed as far as people spend more and more time connected to the devices, which is necessarily going to, put a hand in the steering of evolution as far as we turn out. And then it goes back to this idea of what have they been discovering over the last 200 years? Well, they've been discovering the things that make human beings unique, how to control us, how to benefit us, and all that stuff. So it wouldn't be that far-fetched to think that maybe, within a period of 50 years, something might happen on the Earth where they convince the population that they need to open up more baby factories where they can design what they're like. And, it wouldn't be that hard to throw in a little gene editing and say, maybe this one's a better soldier, this one's a better worker, this one's better for breeding. And what do you have? You have an ant society. I mean, basically, that's what that is. When you look into the ant society, part of this epiphany that I've been talking about actually came from the ants themselves. When I was in the jungle, I couldn't help but get down and look at these little leafcutter ants. Since I was a kid, I've been watching documentaries on all these animals I got to look at up close, and these places I'd never seen. I always saw it on television. And going there, it does have a little bit of a different feel, but they've even hijacked that. So it's more like a vendor place than it is trying to, look back into the past and have some kind of archaeological epiphany or anything like that, because they've roped everything off. You're not allowed to climb it. You're not allowed to look at it close. But hey, you can buy all the trinkets and stuff that they've got crammed in there through the parking lot and all around it. And that's kind of a microcosm of the entire planet. You can like an idea, but you can't really learn about it. But you can buy the products and be a fan of it, but you can't be a participant of it. Like football, etc. They're designing our society in an ant formation, and we'll just have people that are built for this job and people that are built for that job. And it goes back to their motto that they've always had, is that they have the right to rule. They have the right bloodline. And these are the creepy people in back doors. You bring up the Federal Reserve. We don't even really know who the people that run the Federal Reserve are. Let's not kid ourselves. We always joke about on all of these shows, Grant Hancock, et cetera, they talk about these things, but they don't ever talk about the big elephant in the room is, who are they? Who are these people or entities or beings? Maybe it's human, maybe it's not, that have these 1,000-year, 100-year plans that keep incrementally moving forward no matter what the culture and civilization is doing in the background. These plans keep happening. And it's hard to believe that, father to son, generationally, that they would have kept on track. So it must be something like the president said, there's a group out there or an entity out there that's so powerful and so connected to every facet of human life that you better not speak above your breath when you're condemning, it. And I think that's the truth. And look what's happening today. Just saying your opinion at home on the internet can get you in trouble by the rulers. You don't talk about the they. You're not allowed to speak of they if it's any real they. However, you're allowed to go on and spew disinformation, fantasy, fiction. You can identify as what you want. Other people have to pretend with you, or will stick the thought police on you because you didn't pretend they want the way that they wanted to pretend. So we're already at a weird point like that, where they have absolute control of, what you think. So you better not speak of they, very loud above your breath when you're condemning it. And we do that kind of weekly, but really, we don't name them by name. We don't know who they are. That's the truth. We don't know who or what they are. Who owns the Federal Reserve Bank? Okay, well, you can find out the little council and, the people that represent certain positions in it, but you don't really know who the real people that run it behind that are. And we only get little glimpses. We get Davos, we get Bilderberg. Who's telling them what to do? There has to be a, capstone on the pyramid that we're living under, and it ain't them. They're still a lower rung, in my opinion, of what's going on. And the question is, do they even know what's going on? Or are they just little automatons that do what they're told so that their families can stay in power?
Yeah, there's some of the I've watched a couple videos about the hidden families like the Sassoons and there's a few others, not the Rothschilds and all the Rockefellers and all that's too common. Those are the ones that distract you from the real truth. But there was a list of like 5 or 6 other ones that you've never heard of. See, I can't even remember them. The only reason I remember the Sassoon is because Vidal Sassoon is part of that Sassoon family. And that's one of the original monies from the Knights Templar kind of far back that you can trace back to origins of money. Because this reset they're talking about here, in the ants or whatever it might be is, they're trying to come out to say that every building built on the planet Earth right now has to go to zero carbon. So I looked at this whole plan. This thing's like 18 pages of just the most minutia in detail going, oh my gosh. But here's 2 things that I took away from it. One is they're going to make all these different codes, and all your little city councils are going to ramrod through these codes to a zero carbon policy. But no home will ever be able to keep up with that. There won't be enough parts, then there won't be enough retrofits, and they're going to create more carbon by creating all the things that need to be retrofitted in the home than just leaving it the way it was. Like you have to have, if you're going to see, so the paint that's in your house right now is not going to be good enough. They're going to want you to buy new paints that are soy based or some sort of vegetable based paint. And you're literally going to have to repaint the inside of your house to meet the code of a carbon neutral house, even though you've already spent the money and the time and the whatever. If you're going to map out that carbon trail from whatever oils were used or whatnot in that paint and the can and delivered to your store, and you went to drive to go get it, and the truck that brought it there, okay, that's already been bought and paid for, and that carbon's already allocated for. Well, they want you to go, nope, it's not good enough. Now you got to go buy a whole new set of plant-based paints and then repaint your interior of your home. And all these different kind of windows that will be required and insulations. They want you to rip out all the insulation in your house and replace it with new, again, I wouldn't even say hemp, but some sort of plant-based fiber insulation. And they want every commercial apartment building, every commercial like office space rent building, and even just individual homes, all to come under this new carbon neutral thing in the next 10 years. Now, if you're not able to meet these requirements, they're going to say your house is non-livable, and they're actually going to condemn your house, even if it's a brand new house, as today is unlivable because it doesn't live in the carbon policy. So this is where fancifulness, because I don't think anybody's really going to buy this or jive with it. You're not going to get taken out of your house because you can't replace the walls with plant-based insulation when you already got perfectly good insulation in there. Like, that's going to be, even the most nut bag on the planet is going to be like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. But here's another thing that was down in there, speaking of the ants and whatnot. Anything that is done on your property, and this includes your backyard from like a regular suburbanite to somebody like myself with a farm and whatnot. Everything that is cleared off of your property, you have to get a permit to cut every single tree, and every single tree needs to be accounted for in terms of mulch that can be measured. Now, you're not going to be able to burn a single thing again. Everything has to be composted. And I'm like, wait a second. Have you ever cut down multiple pine trees and tried to dispose of them? They want you to try to mulch all these things. Dude, we're using a skid steer with a grapple on there to try to move pine trees after you cut them. I mean, the amount of clearing to be done anyway in a year, I got to spend 2-3 days with a guy with a skid steer to try to keep on top of nature. Nature is so resilient and so fast repairing that I wish everybody could live on a farm just for a season, to see how fast things truly grow and grow back. And you're back at square one again, clearing the same stuff you cleared last year because it grew back so fast. Like this whole misnomer of, you cut the forest down, it's never going to grow back. Please. Give it like 10 years and you won't even be able to walk through there. 5 years and you'll struggle. You'll get lost if it's a few square miles, and I'll drop you in the center and tell you to find your way out of there after 5 years of a clear cut. You'll get lost. You'll be walking in circles. That's how tall above your head it will be. But for the silliness to come out and say that you have to compost every single thing that comes from the earth, you will no longer be able to even have a single fire, which goes back into, if they cut the electricity, now they're going to make fires illegal. And I kid you not, this is what is in this whole new climate or carbon adhered to building codes and carbon, zero carbon real estate. Also, what they're going to do, speaking of the banking, is apparently, and I'm just saying that I don't know how they're going to even remotely try to sell this to the public, that even if your house is paid off, that they're going to require you through fines and upgrades that you won't be able to afford the upgrades in your house and you'll have to abandon it. And if you're unable to, and they'll come in with a bulldozer in the middle of the night and just bulldoze your house down, whether you're there or not. That way they'll take residences off the market, drive up prices, and then there'll be competition because even though it's expensive, you'll still, in a buyer's market or a builder's market, then everything will be at the carbon neutral. And those will be the only residences you'll be allowed to live in. Now, see, the thing that's so ridiculous for me is they want to use fossil fuel machines to come in to bulldoze your house that's supposedly not carbon neutral and then build a brand new house that's carbon neutral. So wait a second, all the resources used to tear something down to rebuild something new. All right, try to sell that to the general public. And then their investments going from whatever the value of your home is to zero because no bank would finance it. And somehow, some way, they're going to change the contractual obligations of banks and your mortgage. The way it was written, at least I explained it. Again, I'm trying to read it from a layman's term here of trying to understand the madness is if you're unable to bring your house to code with a carbon neutral, then the bank will be allowed to call that note. And if you're unable to pay it, then you'll have to literally leave out of your house in 30 days. I'm sitting here going, So if I paid for half my house, and I'm on a, say, 15-year mortgage, and I've paid it for 7.5 years, the equity in it is now worth zero. You will not be able to sell your house because no bank will finance the sale of that house to another person. You'll be stuck with it because you won't be able to sell it unless somebody pays cash. But the movement into the central bank digital currencies won't allow you to have that much cash to purchase the home from somebody else. And if you do, like the tax rate is somewhere going to be around 90%. So let's say I sold my house for $100,000, then 90,000 of that will go to tax, and I'll get to keep 10,000, which will be converted over to central bank digital currencies, which could be programmed to be removed if we have a radio program like Ransom and myself tonight. But the whole thing, are we ants? Are we? How are they going to tear down an entire society? Think about the United States. They might be able to do some of this in Europe or some of this in more of the left-leaning cities in America. But if you're going to come down here with bulldozers and come out into the countryside and tell people their log homes are not compliant and they have to be destroyed, it's just not going to work. You could turn off your power, and people can live a long time without electricity if you have the right, if you're prepared for it. But these things that they're trying to bring about is a terraforming type of thing. Again, it comes back to the karmatic laws of the elite, quote unquote, the self-proclaimed elite. They're just humans that are corruptible. And there's a whole bunch of other adjectives that I could put inside there. Most times, the way they look at themselves is superior to everybody else. They're just different. It's a different psychology, sociopath-wise, inside these people who have bought their way, clawed their way, corruption their way into positions, and are rewarded for that at this present moment. But I just don't know how they're going to get away with it as this progression moves forward. At some point, people are going to wake up, and this law of karma that is with this, the terraforming, they're telling you they're terraforming. They're coming to the point where to remove CO2, now you got to have to realize, if you go below 280 parts per million, things stop growing. And if you pull that back a little bit further to about 230 parts per million, that's extinction level event where every single-celled organism all the way up to the elephants and whales dies. All the plant life dies. It all stops. So with this elite bunch out there, they're telling you they're terraforming. And you're agreeing to it by coming back in on this carbon neutral this, the windmill that, the this. All these new things around the climate. They're absolutely telling you what they're doing or what they're planning to do. The law of karma says they have to. They're making us terraform this planet for something else that is inbound. I say, hey, we go burn more stuff. Everybody have a campfire this weekend. Put extra CO2 up in the atmosphere. The volcanoes will help us. And we need to transform this planet back into higher CO2 values, because whatever's planned to come to live here to take over us needs a lower CO2 environment to do it. So we need to pump the CO2 back up on this planet to keep whatever that exists in that air value away from our waking streets and living lives here. Ransom, I'll leave you there.
It's a scary idea of make-believe. It's kind of what I was joking about before. We live in that era now where you can be attacked for not believing or pretending what other people are pretending. And that goes right into what you were saying about the CO2. We all know that it's a vital gas for life on Earth. We know it's plant food. We know that there's been a lot of it on Earth, and life survived and was flourishing during those times. And now we're at a low point, and they're telling you that you're at a high point. But if you don't pretend, you can get in trouble. And it's like that with everything. Here's a magic potion. It'll protect you from a disease that's going around. Oh, well, you got to believe in it, I guess, to for it to work. I don't know. But there's all these different things. People identify as a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm magical. I'm powerful. Believe me, or go to jail. We do this with everything now. They have it cornered down to all arguments in a scientific way. For example, like they have one group of people in the U.S. saying, defund the police, defund the police. And then the other side saying, no, we can't do that because, society will fall and there'll be more crime and this and that and the other thing. But they won't both just stop pretending and actually have the real discussion is that the police force in the U.S. is like the fourth largest military in the world. They are funded way too much. They have the financial backing of a military. But you're not supposed to talk about that. You're not supposed to pay attention to that. You're supposed to say defund them for some other reason. Maybe they're bad. They have bad opinions. So you never even get a truthful argument as far as like the debates that they put out there. And, I was thinking about that. We keep talking about terraforming. What if you could just get a whole society, the whole planetary society, to just commit suicide? You could talk them into, it's a good thing. You could pretend that you're helping the planet by just killing yourself. And what do we see around? There's countries that allow you to kill yourself. We have massive amounts of getting rid of our own offspring. We poison ourselves with our food, et cetera, et cetera. So the programming to kill yourself has already happened. But it's not individually, so to speak. It's the entire world. If you could just talk people into reducing the carbon dioxide on the planet down to a level like you were talking about, to the verge of a global suicide of life on Earth, that's a lot of power. But it's not that far-fetched to think it when you look at these other pretend realms that they have people pretending in. And it's bizarre that we got there. It's the emperor has no clothes on, but if you say that, you're going to be thrown in jail. If you say that, you're going to be ostracized. If you say that, we're going to mess with your social credit score. And I've been seeing, stuff on different articles talking about Indeed. The social credit score is already here. They're already using it, and we've talked about that before. But now they're really starting to implement it. So things are about to get really tricky as far as what you're allowed to believe in, how you're allowed to live your life. I don't know if you saw that example in New Zealand, but this couple has a baby. The baby is unvaccinated. The baby needs a surgery the parents don't want to have the surgery where they give the baby vaccinated blood. Now, this has nothing to do with the debate about whether it works or not. It's just a simple choice of the parents, whether or not they want someone of a specific person. Maybe for religious reasons or family reasons, they only wanted somebody in their family that was O negative, say. They said, well, this person can do it. The government said, no, we get to decide how that happens. So we're going to take your child away from you because you won't pretend with us that there's no big deal, that you should be able to choose someone that, you could call untainted or natural in the way that their blood content is. But you can't do that. But I guarantee you, if you're an elite person on the top tier, you get to choose what kind of organ you might have. And there's this movie. It was called, I think, The Island. It was a few years back. It's not well known. For some reason, they don't stream it. I've noticed there's a lot of movies like this that are too real, too much predictive programming, that they decided that maybe they shouldn't, play it and make it a cult favorite or popular movie. One of those movies is They Live. But the other movie is The Island, where they just grow people and cut them up so people could live longer to have money.
Yeah, it seems like it's a cultivated society, and we appreciate you spending your valuable time with us tonight. David DuByne right here, Ransom Godwin, who just signed off. And the Ice Age Conversations will be hitting the back next week with the record cold coming in for Christmas. It's going to be 9 degrees in Tennessee. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Revolution